She spent 10 years dancing with giants, a world-renowned orca trainer, praised for her calm presence and unmatched connection with the ocean's most powerful predator. She thought she understood everything, but one afternoon in June, before hundreds of stunned, her dream shattered into a deadly nightmare. What you're about to hear will stay with you forever. Before we tell you what really happened inside that pool, you need to know 3 disturbing truths first. Elise Moreau was considered the best in her field. Second, Kayla, the orca she trusted with her light heart, a violent past no one wanted tokenage. And third, what happened next didn't just end a life. It exposed a truth that could end an entire industry. Welcome to Wild Wildlife documentary, where real stories reveal what lies beneath the surface. If stories like this captivate you, subscribe now and turn on notifications, because the next time the water turns red, you'll want to understand why. From a young age, Elise Moreau had always felt more at home near the ocean than anywhere else. Growing up along the rocky shores of Brittany, France, she would spend hours watching the waves, dreaming of swimming alongside the giants of Thadab, while other children played with dolls. Elise collected books on marine biology, drawing orcas in the margins of her schoolwork. To her, they weren't just animals, they were beings of grace, intelligence, and mystery. At 19, she left home to pursue her dream, enrolling in a marine mammal training program in the United States. It wasn't easy. She scrubbed tanks, prepared buckets of thawed fish, and endured the grueling discipline of daily training. But over time, her quiet determination stood out. Rainers began to notice her uncanny ability to read body language, not just of people, but of animals too. By 34, Elise had become the lead trainer at BlueSea Sanctuary, a prestigious marine park nestled along the cliffs of Santa Cruz, California. She wasn't just admired by colleagues, she was adored by the public. Eldrin waved posters with her name on them. Tourists requested to see her show's signature performance. Harmony of the Deep was the park's crown jewel, a carefully choreographed ballet between human and orca. But what made Elise truly stand out wasn't her showmanship, it was her connection to Kayla, the park's largest orca. The two were inseparably, swore she could sense Kayla's mood with just a glance, and Kayla in turn would respond to her voice with an affection that seemed impossible for a wild predatorless doesn't train Kayla. One co-worker said they speak the same. To the public it was magical, a woman and a beast, united by trust. Every leap, every synchronized spin in the air, every gentle nudge of Kayla's rostrum against Elise's foot. These moments told a story of harmony, but behind the perfect smiles and polished trot, no one dared to question what would happen if that trust was ever broken. In the eyes of the world, Elise Moreau had achieved her dream, but dreams like oceans can turn without warning. Kayla wasn't born in a marine park, she wasn't bred in captivity or raised with human hands. She was taken in the frigid waters off the Kamchatka Peninsula in 1995. A pod of orcas was quietly migrating along their seasonal path when the chaos began. Speedboats cut through silence, nets were cast and panic-ed calls echoed through the sea. Kayla, only a juvenile, was separated from her mother, her pods scattered. She was dragged to the surface, sedated and loaded into a transport tank. The operation was efficient, brutal and legal. For the next several years, Kayla was moved between facilities, trained and conditioned to perform trainers' origins, and warnings described her as intelligent but moodish, learned fast but didn't trust easily. Reports documented episodes of food refusal, long periods, often responsiveness, and in one case a sudden tail strike that left a trainer with broken ribs. The incidents were labeled as anomalies and quietly filed away when BlueSea Sanctuary acquired Kayla. At age 12, they were aware of her difficult temperament, but saw her as Asta in the making she was enormous, powerful, and visually striking, perfect for the spotlight in private memos. Park executives noted she had high commercial value. Publicly, they called her a gentle giant. Adjusting to her new home over their years, Kayla became calmer. At least on the surface, she bonded with Elise Moreau, a way that surprised even seasoned trainers. Elise insisted Kayla was misunderstood, not dangerous, and for a time it seemed she was right. But beneath routines and the rehearsals think darker remained. Kayla had been turned from a world where orcas swim freely across oceans, guided by family instinct and ancient memory. No amount of office rewards or soothing commands could erase that fracture. Some called it trauma, others called it instinct waiting to resurface. Either way, Kayla was not like the others, and the past, no matter how well hidden, never stays buried forever to the outside world. The relationship between Elise and Kayla was extraordinary. Nares described it as something beyond training, something emotionally most spiritual, while others use ETH whistles and target polls. Ellie used only her voice, her presence. She listens to my heart, Ellie once said in an interview, resting gently on Kayla's smooth back. It made headlines, it made people believe. Behind the curtain, though things weren't as perfect, there were moments, fleeting but real, when Kayla hesitated. Aspen completed half a second too late. A refusal to breach prolonged eye contact that felt unfamiliar. Ease brushed them off with a smile. She's just being moody today, she'd say, echoing the same optimism she'd held from the start. To her, these weren't signs of danger, they were part of the emotional depth of their bond. But to a few close colleagues, worry was starting to bloom. James Lynn, a junior trainer, had noticed Kayla's body language shifting during rehearsals. There was tension. He later recalled small things, the angle of her turns, the way she held her rostrum just a little lower. You could feel it. She was holding something back. He brought it up and gently, cautiously to Elise, but she waved it away. I know her, she said firmly, better than anyone, and that was the truth that made it all so dangerous. Elise did know Kayla better than anyone. Even the deepest understanding can be clouded by love, by pride, by a disarray. Believe in the impossible behind closed doors. BlueSea's management team received internal behavior reports. Some noted increased jaw popping and persistent separation behavior after shows. These were classic signs of frustration in orcas, but the reports were filed away, out of sight, out of mind. Kayla was the star of the park. Elise West face neither could falter, and so the show went on. Smiles stayed bright, routines stayed sharp, audiences cheered. But in Kayla's massive, intelligent eye, something stirred, something Elise refused to see. She had built her trust in years of love and discipline. Believing their connection was unbreakable. But sometimes, the more likely we hold on to something, the more likely it is to slip away. June 12th was blisteringly hot in Santa Cruz. The sun bore down on BlueSea Sanctuary like a spotlight, baking the bleachers filled with families and tourists. The harmony of the deep show was fully booked. Over 800 spectators, from toddlers to retirees, backed the stadium, fanning themselves and sipping lemonade as the music swelled backstage. Elise Moreau stood in her wetsuit, adjusting her headset. Her focus was sharp. This routine was special. The attack, an anniversary performance marking 10 years of working with Kayla. Today, Kayla would lift Elise high above the surface in a dramatic finale, holding her balanced on her rostrum like a living platform. It was the kind of maneuver that earned gasps and applause as Thegits opened. The orca swam into view, her black and white form slicing fortly through the shimmering water. The crowd erupted in cheers. Elise stepped forward, hands extended, a soft whistle signaling Kayla to begin, but the orca didn't respond. Kayla floated in place, unmoving, her pectoral fins twitched. Slightly, Elise repeated cue, adding a soft vocal command. "Up, girl. Let's go." Still nothing then. Slowly Kayla approached, but not as expected. Instead of positioning beneath, Elise shivered to the side, brushing past her legs with a cold, heavy glide. Elise awkwardly playing it off. "She's feeling playful today," she said into the mic, masking the unease in her voice. Audience laughed without warning. Kayla doubled back and struck the orca, surged upward, knocking Elise off balance, sending her into the pool with a splash. For a heartbeat, it looked like a stumble, an accident. Spectators leaned forward, intrigued, then the water turned violent. Kayla's jaws clamped down on Elise's left arm with terrifying pressure. The scream that tore from Elise's mouth was muffled beneath the surface. Her body thrashed as she tried to free herself. Bubbles and blood erupted into the air. The trainers on deck froze, stunned by the sudden shift from routine to nightmare. Kayla didn't stop. She dragged Elise under, spun her view, then burst to the surface, thrashing the limp trainer in full view. Oof. The crowd gasps, turned to screams. Parents shielded their children's. Simone shouted, "That's not part of the show." Ely broke the surface on Sigisbinger, face pale and panicked. She tried to reach the edge, but Kayla grabbed her leg and yanked her back under with bone-crushing force. Alarms, blood staff, scrambled to emergency. Nets a trainer through a weighted buoy, trying to distract Kayla, but the orca was locked in it. Lasted than 2 minutes when Kayla finalized. Her Elise floated to the surface, motionless, blood in her hair, eyes open and vacant. The crowd sat in stunned silence. The only sound was the soft lap of water against the pool sidge. Something beautiful had shattered, and no one could pretend it was just Asho anymore. The surface of the water repelled red. Elise's body, once a symbol of grace in the pool, now twisted violently beneath the waves. Kayla had clamped down again, this time on her torso, her black and white mass churned the water like a storm. Elise tried to scream, but salt and blood filled her throat. Her limbs thrashed wildly every time she reached for the surface. Kayla dragged her deeper from above. Thodians could no longer cheer. Panicryptistan's children cried. A woman dropped her phone, frozen in horror. Cheerful music that had accompanied performance continued for a few seconds, then cut to silence. Backstage emergency protocols kicked in. Trainers ran toward the pool, throwing distraction toys, slapping the water, shouting Kayla's name, but she didn't respond. Her eyes were locked on Elise, not with rage, but something cold had eaten, as if the orca was no longer performing, but reclaiming something that had been stolen from her. Elise surfaced, briefly coughing, violent lice. Ghostly white, her mouth formed a single word, help, before Kayla struck again. This time, the orca's rost into Elise's chest with bone-shattering force. The crack echoed across stadium. Her body went limp. Kayla circled, then came up beneath her and launched the trainer into the air. Elise's form arced helplessly before crashing back into the pool, her body hitting the surface like a dropped dull. Security staff arrived too late to intervene. A trainer activated the underwater sound system, blasting higfraxy tones meant to deter aggressive behavior. It only agitated Kayla further. The orca thrashed, spraying onto the first row of spectator zone of the emergency net, snagged on Thurling and failed to deploy. Seconds ticked by like hours. Finally Kayla stopped. She drifted motionless in the center of the tank. Elise's body floated near the edge, her arm bent unnaturally, her weight suit torn. The water around her was stained dark, and still paramedics pulled her from the pool. Chest compressions began immediately. Sumian sobbed uncontrollably on the radio, but silence from Elise was deafening. she was gone. As Kayla watched from the other side of the pool, the crowd, slowly off to math, an exposure evacuated silent, stunned and changed. What was meant to be a celebration of connection had ended in carnage. And beneath the quiet surface, something ancient had awakened. The morning after the attack, BlueSea Sanctuary remained closed to the public. The gates where ashamed security guards paced along the quays. News vans clustered outside the entrance. Reporters desperate for details inside the pool where Elise Moreau Hadid was now still, its surface calm, its solence deceptive, but the illusion was gone. Everyone knew it. An official investigation began within hours. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, animal welfare inspectors and marine biologists destined on the facility. What started as a public relations crisis quickly turned into something far darker. Internal documents were leaked. Whistleblowers came forward, and suddenly a dam of silence broke. Kayla's history had been far from clean. Incident reports dating back 8 years revealed a pattern: aggressive lunges during feeding, jaw-popping TOR, trainers' repeat refusals to follow commands, even moments of unexplained agitation following large crowd performance. Own report described Kayla ramming Theppel wall after a show, her eyes wide with stress, her vocalizations sharp and continuous, but these warnings never reached the public. Management had downplayed each one as routine behavior variability. Private emails, executives wrote things like "too valuable to sideline her, we'll monitor, don't escalate Ulisacon, handle her, she's the only one who can." One former trainer who left Thepok months before Elise's death gave Ackling interview. Kayla wasn't just acting out, she was unraveling. We all saw, and Elise she trusted to deeply. Elise's family, heartbroken and furious, ended accountability. Her parents revealed personal journal entries Elise had written weeks before the incident. Thought Kayla had been acting strange, Butch believed it was just the heat. Ostrous, in one haunting line she wrote, "If I can't reach her, maybe no one can." Public outrage exploded. Protests erupted outside marine parks across California. Petitions to end Orca captivity gathered millions of signatures in days. Social media turned Elise into a symbol not just of tragedy, but of betrayal. The betrayal wasn't by Kayla, it was by a system that chose profit over precaution, optics over truth, and image over safety. BlueSea Sanctuary issued a brief statement: "We are heartbroken by Elise Slass. She was family. We are cooperating fully with authorities, but the damage already done behind the curtain." Off smiles and sequins, the public saw Thetrath, a wild predator kept in a concrete box, a gifted woman lulled into fatal trust, and a culture that silenced red flags until it was too late. Elise Moreau didn't die because she lacked skill, shedded because no one listened when the water warned them. The death of Elise Moreau did not fade quietly into the news cycle. In the days that followed, the images of her final performance were replayed across every major network. Moment of impact, the red spreading through the water, the panicked screams. Silence after it wasn't just another accident, it was a reckoning. Candlelight vigils were held outside. BlueSea Sanctuary fans placed flowers, photographs, and handwritten notes. At Theogate one read, "She gave her heart to Theotian, and the system drowned her." Elise Bem, more than a trainer, she became a symbol of compassion, of misjudged trust, of what happens when love for wildness is used to decorate. A cage. Animal rights organizations seized the moment. Sea advocacy groups reignited their campaigns. Billboards went up: captiviticals free. Kayla. Elise believed now. Within weeks, lawmakers in Legacy and Reflection, California, began debating a new bill, the Orca Protection Act, banning the breeding, sale, and performance of captive orcas. Thousands of citizens wrote to their representative demanding reform. Elise's parents testified at a public hearing holding up their daughter's weights. Sutton, bloodstained and irreversibly wealthy, didn't want vengeance, they wanted change. Meanwhile, inside the sanctuary, swam alone, she no longer performed trainers. No longer entered the water. Her routines had stopped. She circled Thetunk silently for hours. Surfacing on Lito, breathed what she remembered, what she felt no one could truly know. Some call it her, a killer, others a victim, but one truth remained. She had been forced into a life that was never hers to live. Her visitors weren't allowed to see her anymore, but one janitor later recalled passing the tank late one night and seeing her motionless at the surface staring into the empty seats where Elise stood. He swore she hadn't moved 4 hours. Elise Moreau's name was etched into a bronze memorial near the sanctuary entrance, but her legacy reached far beyond stone schools. Began rethinking Marion Park field trips, families stopped buying tickets, celebrities voiced support, a global movement bloomed not out of hatred for Orcas, but out of a painful new understanding. Even the strongest bond can break when it's built in a prison. Elise dreamed of connection, of harmony, of bridging the gap between spaces. In the end, that dream died in the same water where it was born. But from that death came a question too. Lauto ignore how many more need to debiffer. We stop calling this entertainment. Do you believe Orcas, like Kayla, should live in captivity for our entertainment? How many more lives human animal must be lost before we open our eyes? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice could be part of that change. Elise Moreau's story isn't just about loss, it's about truth. A truth long hidden beneath applause and smiling shows she loved. Kayla, she trusted the system, and she paid for that trust with her life. Kayla was never a villain, she was a prisoner, and the world watched as their bond once magical broke under thwart of captivity. If Elise's story moved you, don't let it fade. Subscribe to our channel for more real stories that challenge what we think we know. Share this video to help others see behind their glass, because the more we talk, the more we understand, and only through understanding can change begin.